What's up, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek. Thank you very much for joining me here on Pretty Dece, your daily entertainment and pop culture show. Let's talk about some comic books right now because there's a big comic book milestone coming up in April, and that is that Action Comics issue 1000 will come out. This is the first American comic to hit issue 1000. It's a massive milestone for the comics industry, for really just like entertainment in general, for something to be that long running, to hit 1,000 single issues. And Action Comics is kind of interesting because while most comics have been rebooted a million different times, look at something like, Thor's comic or Spider-Man, where they've gone back to original numbering like several different times and had multiple volumes. Action Comics, they've only rebooted the numbering a single time. It ran all the way up to in the 600s, and then it went weekly for a little while, from I think like 601-ish to 642-ish, and it was rebooted in 2011 as part of the New 52 project. We started back at number 1, and then after that they did some time there, and then reverted back to the original numbering scheme, and now that's brought us back to 1,000. So even though there was a little break in there where they were numbering it slightly differently, that for the grand scheme for 1,000 issues is actually still pretty good as far as comics are concerned. And it still is a series that has been published continually, monthly, weekly, in some form or another since it began, which again is extremely, extremely impressive, chronicling the adventures of Superman for all of these years. This issue, the issue that's coming out, the issue 1000, is particularly interesting for several reasons. First of all, it is going to be the first DC work for Brian Michael Bendis. You might know that name because he is essentially he's like the guy in the Marvel Universe. And we talked recently on Pretty Dece that he just jumped ship. He signed an exclusivity deal with DC Comics. So despite the fact that he's written Marvel Comics for years and years and years, and has created tons of characters, and has created been like the voice on so many different books and so many different superheroes and superhero teams, he moved over to DC to write for the competition. And there was tons of speculation on what he was going to write first, what he was going to do, what DC was going to throw his way. And we now know that kind of the first thing he's going to tackle is a portion of Action Comics 1000. I'm not sure if he's going to stick to Superman then, or if that's just sort of a get your feet wet in the DC universe and then move on from there. But personally, I would love to see Bendis tackle Superman. I think Bendis is really good at humanizing characters, showing them in their off time, like diving into what their lives are like when they aren't being superheroes. And I think that is where Superman really shines, when he gets to show that he is still heroic and compassionate as Clark, even when he isn't donning the old, awesome suit. So, it'll be interesting to see if he then takes the book over. Because Superman, Action Comics issue 1000 here is going to be a massive anthology. Bendis' portion is just a small portion of the comic. Lots of writers and artists are going to be tackling various stories that are going to be compiled in this compendium issue that will be issue 1000. So aside from Bendis getting his feet wet in DC for the very first time in this issue is also noteworthy for another reason. So first of all, picture Superman, if you will, right? He's got, the blue spandex, he's got the red cape, he's probably got in your mind a yellow belt, he's got his red underwear, he's got his red boots. However, you might not even know this, Superman hasn't had the yellow belt and the red underwear for almost 7 years now. Ever since the New 52 reboot, he has had a slightly different suit. Jim Lee and all the people at DC redesigned and modernized the Superman costume back then. And then he has a kind of red belt, and he doesn't have the kind of underwear on his outside look anymore. It's just sort of blue spandex, blue kind of armor all the way down. And that's a good look for Superman. I really like that New 52 redesign of Superman. It's lasted them for a long time. However, with issue 1000 of Action Comics, Superman is going back to his classic look, to the yellow belt and the red underwear on the outside, which is pretty sweet, you know? Comics in their normal form are very cyclical. Things change, people turn evil, and then we come back to normal. We come back to base. So, you know, this is just one of those times where things changed, we tried something new for a little while, and then we kind of circle back to what's new and comfortable, and it feels a little fresh again. And that's exactly what's happening here. So, you know, underwear on the outside of your superhero costume might seem like a small deal, but in the world of Superman, it's been gone for so long, it's actually kind of a pretty sweet deal after all. So that's Action Comics 1000 coming out in April, something to look forward to there for DC Comics. So that's going to do it for Pretty Dece for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Make sure that you like Pretty Dece on Facebook, facebook.com/PrettyDeceShow. Follow me on Twitter @PrettyDeceShow and visit PrettyDeceShow.com. I'll be back tomorrow for another daily episode. In the meantime, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, and in the Anchor app so you never miss any of the content.